welcome to Seeking Balance with Kat and James. I'm James Harvard. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Across from me, I have Kat Bigley. We have literally a billion things to talk about. I've been looking forward to it because every conversation we've always had has been pretty deep. I always learn something from it. I hope that, in the future we can teach, other people what we've gotten from each other. And, I don't know. How are you feeling today?
I feel good. It's the moment of when, you say you're going to do something and it's happening.
Yeah.
So making this happen, this is...
Yeah. It's taken a few steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're here, I know, I don't really know, how would you summarize what we plan to do?
Sharing a message of a balance of life, which is what our conversations are anyway. Professionally, holistic healing, a genuine caring and love for our clients, but then also integrating it into our own lives and then using each other as soundboards. So, sounding boards. People who know me know that I'm very much in the feminist tribe, but what I love about our relationship is that it gives me that sounding board, So I think that's where I'm not coming from, just my background, right? So that we can and not always agree on everything, but
I think I've always tried to give you my input with the least amount of my baggage attached. To try to look past my baggage and give you an honest opinion of how I take things. Because I know that, baggage for me definitely clouds everything. So I've had to work on, clearing that and then try to give someone the best advice or opinion or info, whatever it is, without that extra baggage and the negativity from it. And I don't know, I feel like you pick up on that a lot. And, but I'm not perfect. I've never met someone who was. So,
well, overall, the vision of this, and as we were joking about just pushing play and starting this today, is that as we look back over, when we get to a bazillion episodes, the original vision is that can you have this conversation and take it from a holistic point? And we keep saying the same things over and over again, individually to small group classes or private clients. And it's like, obviously this message needs to be heard by more people, right? And that I love when people push back to me, right? And so as we put it out to the world, if somebody says, I don't know how that feels when you say that, that sits a little bit weird with me. Then it's like, okay, maybe I'll check myself on that one. Or that, every time I share my story, every time I make myself more vulnerable, I get someone I needed to hear that today. I'm struggling with the same thing, or I'm about ready to face something similar. And now that I see that you're a couple steps ahead of me on that path, I can do it. So there seems to be a lot of value in getting perspective, the yin and yang, the male and female perspective of everything from yoga, meditation, massage to just surviving life and parenthood.
Yeah. And, obviously that being balance, and I know I talk about balance all day, every single day, it seems like. I know that often when I talk about balance, if I ask someone what they feel about it or what their take on balance is, it generally is I balance my work life with my home life, blah, 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 blah. But I find that, the first balance that I think personally should be achieved would be muscular balance in your body. Creates less pain. When you're feeling pain, and a lot of times we're not even consciously feeling it. It just, our brain is sensing it. It's trying to ignore it because it's, gotten it's been there so long, the brain will just literally ignore it. So, with those aches and pains, I think that it distracts us from like true focus. Even I know when I go to like meditate or anything like that, if I'm really sore, I can't. I mean, I'm thinking about the sore muscle or my back. I'm sitting, cross-legged, and my hips are sore, and there's no focus in that. And so, from meditation, I feel like that was what I got the most from it, is that if I'm in pain, this is not going to work. So I always felt like balance first needed to be inside, and then that, honestly, I think it just starts to translate to the outside. And at least it has in my life.
Well, the definition of yoga is yoke. It is like the two ox and the yoke, and what are you trying to do, right? And so you're trying to get those two massive forces to move forward in some type of balance. But if you see the way that two ox move with a yoke, it's not pretty, right? I mean, it can be, but so that's really the whole essence, and that yoga is not just asanas, not just poses, there's so many other parts, and there's 8 limbs to it, there's the whole lifestyle to it. And so I will say, and this is one of those, once somebody is already in my class and knows that I'm a nice person, I will say the pain keeps you present, though, because if you're in a yoga pose or a meditative pose, I would then say to you, if you get into the pose and it's easy, you start to melt into it, and you start to either doze off or monkey mind, and your mind goes outside of the room, and you start to notice, the pattern on the shirt of the person in front of you, whatever, where the monkey mind goes. That's the practice. You now have to bring yourself back. That's your cue. Go deeper into the pose. Feel the icky, feel the yummy, feel the ouch, and let the pain keep you present. Now, that's specifically like a yin pose that you're in, like super deep, right? So not like a pose that you would be flowing and changing positions a lot. But for your saying a meditative, that is what I would say to you in that moment, is, okay, so now you're present. Now you've reached that goal. You're inside your body. You know exactly why you're sore, maybe. You know how to fix it. So now you're inside your body. Good job. Awesome. Cool. You're there. You made it inside, which is tough because most people are usually outside, right? So that's where that can be your cue to bring it back in. Now breathe. Because if you're in pain, your body starts to resist, because your body's like, I don't know what year it is. I don't know if I'm being tortured. And so then your breath, right? So you're like, okay, the only way you're going to tell your body that it's okay is that you start breathing slowly.
That makes sense. I mean, I think if I was in like a yoga pose and I felt pain, it would be much easier than just sitting and meditating. Like I expect pain in yoga. I don't expect pain in sitting Indian style.
So that's an adaptation.
Whatever the political correct term for that is. I don't even know how to say that.
Let's cross applesauce. But that, I mean, this is why the conversation works, of saying, I can't meditate, or I get so easy into the poses I just fall asleep. It's like, okay, well, maybe change the pose, maybe do a standing meditation, maybe do a moving meditation. Maybe you need something like Tai Chi or Qigong to keep moving, to then calm the mind. So it doesn't have to be that image of the messy bun yoga girl sitting with her legs crossed with her hands together, right? So that's just a good conversation to say, well, when I do it this way, it doesn't work for me.
I think sometimes I definitely I like more of an active meditation, but sometimes I found that with loving myself, silence has become awesome. Whereas in the past, when I was a lot younger, especially, I didn't even want to be alone. Alone meant in my brain, and my brain was just a nightmare. So
I think that's pretty normal.
And then over the years, just like seriously working on like how do I love myself and what do I love about myself. You know, it made me realize that silence isn't the enemy. Silence is a great time to reflect and not, you know, dwell on the past, or, you know, zoom into the future or anything like that, but just to, you know, sit in the presence and just enjoy it for once, you know. And there was never much in, you know, enjoying the presence in the past, you know, long, at least it's been probably about 10 years since that was an issue, but I know, you know, I'm 46 now, so, you know, that's well into my 30s, which I find that, you know, I think with men, most men don't really, you know, mature until at least 35. And, you know, but I don't know that, like, most of the men I know, it's almost not required of them, you know? I never felt like it was required of me to mature until I was in a serious relationship or something like that. And, you know, beyond that, like, there was really, you know, if there's no kids involved or all that, there's just no need to mature, you know. Whereas women, you know, there's kind of that, like, well, you're vulnerable to pregnancy at, you know, every moment. So that, I think, really steps up that, you know, the maturity and responsibility, at least sometimes.
Well, I mean, scientifically women do, girls do mature sooner, and there's
Absolutely.
all of those things that line up, and so, and then it's...
Yeah, I think you guys have to deal with your hormones way earlier than we do, you know. And ours kind of, you know, rage, and I don't know that men are taught very well how to deal with those hormones. I was never taught. Like, you just, you know, just ignore it. You know what I mean? And I was just always like, no, I don't think that's a good idea either, you know, but I think, like, just pushing it aside or pushing it down or, you know, whatever, has never worked for me. So I've always had to be very vocal, and say what I feel, and I've, you know, a lot of people have told me, oh man, you just complain all the time. And I tell them, no, I just say how I feel. And then when they realize that, they're like, yeah, I guess you're right. You do kind of just vocalize it, and I don't. You know, and I'm like, and you're tight and, you know, intense, and that's why you're my patient, you know, whatever. But
I'll say, when I put my hands on a woman's shoulders, back, neck, and shoulders, even if it's just a soothing moment in a, you know, a yoga class or just something that's, you know, a women's circle, and I put my hands on the back of a man and their neck and their shoulders.
yeah, dramatically different.
Oh my heavens!
Yeah.
The softness of the man. I mean, even someone who lifts and works out, like there's just even if they're really built, that muscle just goes back to softness. And I touch these women who might be like really thin, but they're just balls of anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And I just touch them. I'm like, oh, honey, like it is so amazingly different the way that men and women feel different.
I totally agree. I think what I would say about that is that I think most of the time men and women carry their stress in different places. I find that women carry the world on their shoulders and men carry it with their lower back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you'll find that like most men have very little movement in their lower back, and a lot of those muscles have just, I mean, you know, there's adhesion and all that. But that's the same in a woman's upper back, you know, neck. It's that crazy thickness from constant stress and constant tension and constant imbalance. You know, that's really the biggest thing. And if you think about it, you know, a woman is always going to get pulled forward by breast tissue and the weight of that. So, you know, for her to have an upper back that's really tight makes complete sense. Whereas men, they tend to put weight, you know, in their lower stomach, which tends to pull their lower back forward, which makes sense that their back is, you know, super tight there.
You know, I've noticed in the last year, especially with more people working in front of laptops and you know,
I've definitely noticed that.
Curving in, right? So it's like, and I will say to women, I'm like, you're a hairdresser, you're a child care provider, you're a mother, you know, whatever it is, it's like there's always this curve in, and that imagery is like embracing arms. That imagery is not really bad, except that they never get the reverse, right? So it's just like that curl in, curve in, curve in. And so I think I spend a lot more time talking about like supported ways to bend back bend, not like extreme back bends, but somehow find some type of, you know.
Open up the front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, because.
I preset daily, all day.
But, and I mean, like, you might be saving the world and like pushing the button that, you know, you're the smartest person in the world, but your stress still brings you forward and curved forward, right?
Yeah.
So if at the end of the day you don't open up, and then, you know, that's your heart chakra, that's your protection, you've got that rib cage, and everybody's like turning into these like balls of shoulder stress.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, part of it is stretching and opening. A huge part as well, like when it gets really bad, like you actually have to strengthen, you know, your shoulders externally rotating, because everything we do is internal. Something I noticed last year definitely was a lot more rounding forward. I think if my life has anything to do with anyone else's life, I found myself on my phone 10 times more last year. That's the only way to communicate with anybody last year, you know, and so we were doing our job still, you know, we're still taking care of, you know, our loved ones, which is a lot of, you know, leaning forward, bending forward, hugging, that type of thing. And then we were on our phones 10 times more.
Right.
Or Zoom calls, or at the laptop, you know, that much more. And I don't think I've ever seen as much, you know, tension from that, ever. I mean, last year was just different, you know, and it was extremely stressful to everyone. And then everything, you know, like their behavior changed. They were, you know, probably active in, you know, the past, going to the gym. Gyms are closed now. Now you get to sit at home, you know, and look at your phone. Yeah, that made so many changes in so many different patients last year. I literally worked my tail off last year trying to keep people feeling even remotely good. And some of these patients I've been working on for years, and they had gotten to a place where they were just great. You know, they were balanced a lot more than they used to be. Their pain levels were almost zero. And then last year hit, and they just went right back to 7, 8, you know. But it was so obvious to me, you know, that rounding forward was in every single patient, including myself. I even found that I've developed kind of a shoulder issue, probably rotator cuff, because of that huge increase in, well, you know, I started a podcast that probably didn't help. And then on my phone, dramatically more, you know, posting stuff for the podcast, communicating with everyone I know, because I just never wanted to stop that, you know. But
So as everybody shakes their head yes, right? Because everybody's like, oh yeah, totally, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
What do you have them do? Like,
What do I have them do?
Like, what do you do? Because for my perception is that I have a dance background, I have a martial art background, I have a yoga and movement meditation background.
Yeah.
There are daily movements that I can do that put me in that reverse movement, right?
Right.
That feel good, but in everyday American life, what are we doing to reverse that? Because I feel like it was something that was coming along anyway, right? I mean, we were all turning into that shape anyway.
Oh, yes.
It just accelerated. So now, I mean, I will say to somebody, and whether they do it or not, you know, it's like, lay on your living room floor with your foam roller and put it down your spine and let your arms hang open and your head drop down, you know.
Yeah.
But that, you know, maybe doesn't happen. And for me, I would much rather give them, you know, an exercise in the gym or a natural movement that feels good. I mean, I don't know.
I tell people to think of a doorway as a stretching device, so that every time you walk through that doorway, you're stretching your chest. And every time you walk through it, you think about stretching it. At least think about it. The awareness is, I think it's everything, you know, and being aware that you're imbalanced, and being aware of, like, what are your activities every day? Are your arms bent, you know, in and forward and pushing down, or, you know, whatever they're doing? Think about each movement you're making, and especially the ones that you do consistently, constantly, you know, just over and over and over and over and over. And if you're not doing an exercise that is opposite of that, then there's never going to be balance, you like, again, the number one thing we do is internal rotation of the shoulder. So my suggestion is always, one, be aware of it, be aware of your activity, be aware of your posture, and then, strengthen external rotation of your shoulder. The shoulder is a complicated joint. It's, because it can literally move in almost any direction, not fully in any direction, but it moves in the most range of motion of any joint we have. And then even when you reach out, you can rotate the arm as well. So it's a super complex joint. And the muscles in that joint, the pec muscle is the biggest, strongest muscle because it's the one we use the most. So the biggest two things I tell people, strengthen, the back and the things that are opposite of the pec. Rhomboids, traps, there's a lot of neck muscles. The pecs tend to pull the collarbone down, so anything that's attached above the collarbone needs to be strengthened to try to keep that collarbone in a good spot. So that's really, but I guess I get frustrated trying to show people specific exercises, because I've explained these exercises to hundreds of patients, maybe thousands, and I can't, even long-term patients, after telling them multiple times, showing them, letting them do it, they still come back and, well, what was that one you showed me? So what I tell them is, you go and actively look up on Google. All you need to do is look up, a trapezius exercise, a shoulder, external rotation of the shoulder exercise. That's going to make you learn it better than me telling you. And if you actively go do that, you're more than likely to continue doing it.
Right.
But me telling you and showing you, I don't find that makes it works in about 1 in 100 people. And that's not enough for me.
But that's why when I have referred clients to you, when I do, I'll say, there is that sense of accountability.
Absolutely.
And personal responsibility.
Yes. Something that I hear a lot is, well, I went to this chiropractor for like 4 years and nothing, improved. You know what I ask that person every single time? What did you do? Did you exercise? Did you strengthen? Did you stretch? Did you, pay attention to when your aches were starting to come on and actually go and see the chiropractor on, at that moment, or, as close to that moment as possible? The answer is always no to almost all those questions, and then I always just wonder, well, can someone else fix you, or can you fix yourself?
Right.
And I always try to teach people, you got to fix yourself. The chiropractor can help you, fix yourself. I can help you fix yourself. I can't fix anything. I can make you feel better for a few days,
right.
But beyond that few days, it requires you to stretch and you to strengthen and you to try to continue that, that goal of balance,
I think that's where I got very disillusioned with when I did just personal training.
Yeah.
I was at dinner at a restaurant and a lady walks up to me and she's like, I've been coming to your classes and I'm still fat and ugly, whatever her description of herself was. And I was like, well, why are you throwing this on me? You haven't been to class for weeks. And this was, 15 years ago. I was definitely in my my early years of personal training, but I quickly switched to that. Okay, I've worked hard on helping people shape their bodies. I've got all the before and after pictures. It was great to kind of see those results as it happened for people. But then it was like, okay, I've got to do now that's when the internal arts started to make more sense to me again. Reiki, energy healing, meditation, incorporating that in yoga was that balance of you can't, if you're still having awful thoughts in a super stressful job and you're not checking in with, as soon as you get back into the car, you're irritated at the person you're driving home to, and if all that stuff dumps back on your body, yes, all of these holistic body
Yeah.
work services are not really going to be, beneficial.
Yeah.
If you're not looking for balance, if you're not looking for what's the whole picture that's happening here.
Taking responsibility for your own health.
Mm-hmm.
I try to teach people that's the most important thing. But no matter whether you're seeing a doctor or anything, if something doesn't feel right to you, shouldn't you try to figure out why? And I personally, I do. I'm always gonna, if I question what a doctor is telling me, I'm always gonna get a second and third opinion. Luckily, I know a lot of doctors, but most insurances cover, second and third opinions, especially on something important, such as cancer or whatever. But, I see a lot of that, well, they've been my doctor for blah, blah, blah. I don't know if I agree with them, and I'm like, what? Like, do they control your health, or do you control your health? Because I'm pretty sure it's you. At least it has been in my life, and so, I don't know, I really, that taking it on yourself, like making health your job. It's not your practitioner's job, to heal you. Sure, we call ourselves healers, or I don't generally call myself a healer. I personally don't feel like I've healed anything. I feel like I've assisted tissues in starting the healing process. And if the patient does the things that I suggest, which is always going to be stretching and strengthening, maybe a little bit of a diet change, they always get amazingly better. And if they don't listen and they expect me to fix them, they are always disappointed and stop coming. And I'm sure that goes a lot with Jim as well. Any chiropractor.
So what happens when I don't text you for a couple of weeks? What happens to my body?
It gets kind of crazy. Yeah, exactly. So,
So I'm just pointing out, I'm not perfect.
No, I'm not either. I mean, I had a massage therapist, on a regular basis for almost a year. She decided to become a nurse, and I was so spoiled, I haven't even looked for another one. I know that I won't find her again, mainly because she had me almost in tears every massage. But mainly because that was definitely what I felt like my body needed. And it made me feel, better for a good full week. And I was seeing her for almost, every week for almost a year. But
well, I think that the biggest thing of if we sit as providers, not necessarily healers, whatever you want to call yourself, and we are offering a holistic side of it, so that we're offering whole, diet, sleep, exercise, what's going on, in your head. Then we also have to have this sense of accountability to be real with our clients. And I think that that's also the positive part of this platform, is that to see that we're not perfect at it either. I was telling, and I tell this to my class all the time, so since I was 18, I've gone to a massage therapist or an energy healer every 3 to 6 months for the last 22 years.
wow.
Every 3 to... Okay, either that's good or I'm a really hot mess.
Well, it's better than most.
It's either a testament to the absolute blank that I truly am, or was, or could be, without any pain meds or medication or antidepressants, or I live on water and coffee, but with that, not even by design. Time just flew by, right? And I walked into my dentist 10 years ago, and the hygienist looked at me and she said, I just want to tell you how proud I am of how well you've managed your chronic pain for so many years. And I was like, what? Oh, I have chronic pain.
Right.
Nobody had told me I had chronic pain, right? But she just sincerely held my shoulder and was like, you have done such a good job managing your own pain, and we're just really proud of you. Because it was debilitating, TMJ, the disorder of the jaw and all that, for years. Through boxing, in
Right.
pregnancies and stress of newborns and kids and stuff and whatever. But yeah, I was like, oh, I didn't know I could just use that label. And I mean, it's true. Once we're given a label, what do we then subscribe to?
Right.
But to be able to say, I'm blessed to be in a community or been able to manifest the people into my lives at the right timing, that when I say, all right, I'm losing my mind, I need a moment, I need someone to go talk to underneath the tree, and it just, was, a therapist off, that wanted just happily to go for a walk with me, or an old friend, or somebody, available to trade massage, so,
Right.
so for me, that has been, honestly, I would not be the person I am today if all of that stuff wouldn't have lined up, all of those opportunities to have deep tissue massage, or somebody willing to get in and really help relieve a lot of that junk.
Yeah. I find also that with practitioners, it's what are you willing to let them help you with? One, what advice are you willing to take? With a jaw, are you going to allow someone, to put gloves on and work inside your mouth? That's extremely personal. So, it's kind of, there's always going to be those boundaries as well that often you need to get past them. The practitioner, if you found someone you can trust and is, a good practitioner, they're professional, and if it's someone, which I also tell people with practitioners, just even from my own experience, that you cannot go to a practitioner that someone told you about and expect that you can trust them just because someone else does. Feel, seriously feel what you're feeling during that first massage. Do you feel safe? When you walked in, did you feel like, yes, I would be safe taking clothes off here, or all that stuff. And if there's fear, don't put yourself out there. Give it time. Take your time. Come back 2 or 3 more times, and then the second visit maybe you take your socks off. I don't know, but whatever it takes to make you feel entirely safe, so that when you're with that practitioner, they can give you the best benefits possible. And be with someone you can trust.
So for me, this is a great segue to the history of Kat and James, right?
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, and being open to body work and having, at that point, I mean, the reality is having children, truly, that's the most vulnerable you're ever going to be. So I'm just like, if I have been in that position to have children and have every part of your body dealt with and exposed and hurt and healed and everything, I don't mind letting somebody see my body so they can give me a massage, right? And that's me. That's my personal journey. Yeah. And so, and then understanding the path we end up on. I was thinking the other day in college, my composition paper, composition 2, when you spend the whole semester doing one paper, I did it on the power of touch, when I was 17 years old. And so that idea that, massage is not just, it's my one spa day, I'm going to relax. It's like, no, it releases endorphins, it releases growth hormone, it, anti-aging, it's, it'll help your overall health by having human touch, by having that happen. So that's just my perspective, and it always has been. And so when you walked into my life, how tall are you?
6'7".
All 6'7" of you walked into my life, and I was like, okay, he is not from around here. And so you said, I'm a massage therapist, I just moved to the area. You had walked into my family's coffee house, and you're like, the manager, anybody, well, I'll just give a free massage.
Yeah.
And I just remember everybody's reaction was like,
yeah.
And I was like, hey, we're friends, right?
Yeah. That's funny.
And I think that, as we talk about what we we want everybody to hear, everybody to be where we are in that understanding and come to us for their needs. And obviously we want to be successful in business, but if we can't provide it for you, find someone else. Massage, yoga, meditation, chiropractic, whatever it is, just find it. But we have to meet people where they are. And I recognize that when I, said to the other staff and my sisters of like, hey, free massage, and they were like, they weren't there yet, and they're not there yet, and that's okay. But for me, it was like immediately, namaste. The light in me recognized the light in you, and it was just like, yes, this is our forever, right? And so already being open, and that might not be where people are yet. Right. But, hopefully we can help them steps along the path to say, oh, okay, I see that there's all these other benefits to it. It's not just going to be, okay, somebody's touching me. Or, like, I do Thai massage, and, people just dress like they're coming to yoga class. So I think wherever anybody is along their path, there's that wisdom that there's somebody else coming to you 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, that the work we're doing now and the words people are hearing now, it's like the little bit of the crack, lets the light in. Oh, okay. And let them start to consider, well, maybe that's something that I'm willing to integrate into my life with my beliefs and my body awareness and where I might be later in life, maybe not in this moment.
Yeah, I vividly remember the day we met, because I remember I was walking downtown and I was missing Seattle because on every block there's a coffee stand. And Haley, my daughter, and I are walking around, and like just as I'm thinking, man, I miss Seattle for coffee, I look over and I see a little, like a little feather sign that says coffee, and I'm just like, what? No way. So, I almost ran over there. I'm not gonna lie. So then I walk in and I've lived in Seattle for like 17 years at this point, and, coffee was a huge part of my world, and then it just basically got cut off, there's like 2 coffee places in the whole town. So I remember walking in with Haley and sitting down. I think I was there for at least a good 10 minutes or so, just kind of taking in the place, And I really enjoyed the place because it did make me kind of feel like I was back in Seattle a little bit, more than like Stoke Coffee, which is just more cut and dry. They're very, like, we sell coffee, I felt like your place was a little more of like, we sell coffee and help the community, and we take the community in, and care type thing. And not that Stoke doesn't care. They're just...
The ambiance was very well thought out.
Yeah, right, yeah. And then you walked in, and I just remember watching you walk around a little bit. I was just like, one, she doesn't really dress like everybody else here. I was like, she looks way more like a Seattle person, And, I love, like, the first thing I noticed, and then when I started talking to you, like, we talked for a while that day, but I remember when I left telling Haley that, like, she belongs in Seattle. It's like, her energy is much more West Coast than it is East Coast. And, it was, I felt the same way. Like, there was definitely going to be a connection there.
Marietta won't let me go, I'm sorry.
I feel that. I think you're supposed to be here, though.
I think so.
I think there's a lot of misinformation, whether it be from the medical community or just bad advice from people, And I can tell you how many times I've heard patients tell me that, well, my aunt got this surgery on her hip, and I think I should too, and why? Well, because mine hurts kind of like she said hers hurt. Well, that doesn't mean, like, whoa. And then, of course, the surgeon's almost always going to be willing to, if you have this surgery, absolutely, I will cut right into you.
Yeah.
And that's such, that's such a bad cycle.
My family, very German, very, very, both sides, and all of the beautiful things that come from a German upbringing and work ethic and everything. And recently one of my cousins talked about changing her diet after several other health issues and just taking out meat and dairy and she said, I always for years had this pain right? And whatever she was describing it, she goes, truly, and this is the truth, we believe as our family that it's our God-given right to have back pain.
Yeah.
You know?
I thought I was tall. It was just going to always be there.
Yeah, and she said, and she's like, I noticed as soon as I don't remember which one it was, but whether it was dairy or red meat, and and only once a week or a little bit or less, she's like, and that pain went away. And so, it was a really cool awareness of that, and it's like, that she was able to make that little bit of dietary change for other reasons, and then notice that back pain went away, as opposed to the point of like we're here, we love this part of the country, we live in the Mid-Ohio Valley, all that, but that we have these generational ties of what we're told health and wellness is, or what it is, your value is if you kill your body while you're working, and that rest is shameful, or that
Yes. I used to think, I'm extremely aware that my brother thinks this, my brother Eric.
Hi Eric, hope you're listening.
Yeah, I'm sure he will be. He always checks out my stuff. So, one of the things that I grew up believing was that if at the end of the day you hadn't, sweated through your clothes and like your back didn't hurt, you didn't work. And on top of that, even worse, that you're not a real man. And then, I became a massage therapist. I remember the first time I took money from somebody for doing massage, I was just like, this is so weird. Someone's like, this wasn't even hard. I'm not sweating. My back it's not even a little sore. My hands don't even hurt. This didn't seem right. Like I'm just taking people's money for nothing. And then over the years, you realize, well, wait, I helped this person, tremendously, and then you also realize that, often you get what you pay for. And always. I don't know, I always felt like, if you pay a little, you get a little, so I always wanted people to think that I'm probably one of the more expensive therapists in town at this point. But I compared myself to all the people I went and saw, and I've seen, I would say at least 70% of the therapists in town. A lot of them only once. Not super impressed. A lot of relaxation massage going on, which is good for some people, but I definitely think more people need a treatment type of massage. You can always throw relaxation into a treatment massage, but you can't throw treatment into a relaxation massage. And I think, one of the things I've always wanted the biggest reason why I applied to Washington State College to teach massage was I feel like, my theory on massage is a better theory than the current one in this area.
Let's be real. Yeah. Why did you apply? Because I told you to.
Yes. You did point out that it was available.
And you are.
I've always wanted to teach massage.
And you are absolutely, and I've always said that, and that's why I send people to you, is that it is an education in your own anatomy, and it is a very good conversation about, how can you achieve balance? How can you, come back to me, keep coming back to me, but knowing that we are progressing to a body that feels better and is more efficient in everyday life. So, sorry I interrupted you, but
no, that was all right. I think I've always had a passion to teach. Not always. I think first it was coaching. I loved a number of my coaches as a kid, and I had some really amazing ones, often more like parents than my parents. And, so I really, there were a few that I even, I talked to for years after them coaching me. So that kind of gave me that, I want to get back to that. I realized where, my talent came from, not necessarily, just within me, but someone drawing that out of me. So I quickly learned that I could also draw it out of other people. That was actually 14, started coaching basketball. So then, when I became a PT, it just seemed to kind of make sense. I'm going to be coaching people how to exercise and stretch and, take care of themselves. That just seemed to kind of fall into place. Not really much of a soul search when I got into that. It just seemed to make sense. And when I look back, I do appreciate it. I never liked it much. I'm not one to sit and watch people do stretches and exercises and count for them, and then chart some ridiculous amount of things about how much pain they experienced while they did this one little stretch. So, yeah, that it started to make me feel like I wasn't helping anymore. And then, I did soul search and found massage. And a lot of people question me about that. Usually it's because they have some whole other idea of what massage is, which is easy to do around here. I tell people it's really easy to do anywhere. If you look on the news, you'll never see a positive story about massage, ever. You don't see a story where, the touch of someone healed someone, and made them love again, or the touch, heal or help them get to a point from immobility to mobility or full mobility. You'll never hear those stories, and that is so shameful, so shameful. All you'll ever hear is prostitution this, here's a, little Asian spa that, is arrested for prostitution, blah, 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 blah. And that's always going to be the case.
Well, I will say, if you hear it, it usually has a strange twist to it that includes, like, people also saw, a vision of Virgin Mary there or something. There's always, if there was this major healing, which makes it, again, a little woo-woo and inaccessible, right? Or if you hear it, if I hear and see these types of stories, it's because I surround myself with news feeds and emails and stuff full of people who are doing the positive work in healing centers. So the stories are there, right? They're just not hitting mainstream, and they're not coming into the middle Ohio Valley mainstream of how did this change your life, so that we're not just buying into, well, my mom had back surgery, I'm going to have back surgery. Well, this is just my family right. The rite of passage is this back pain. So I think that it is out there and it is happening. It's just finding the right platform, and then just us talking about it all the time until the person hears it. I went to my Yoga Slackers teacher training. So, as tough as my black belt test. As tough.
I'm going to talk to her for you, Jim.
Jim. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, what's happening? Sometimes we have breaks along the way. That's fine.
Okay, we'll pause it.
So you and I met when I first started business, 2002. I opened my practice here in town. I think you and your Joe were involved in either back-to-back or business after hours or something through the Chamber of Commerce or something. I remember meeting you then.
Yeah, and I think one time it was Joe's back was severely out, and we met him on a Sunday afternoon or something, and it was it was emergency call kind of thing.
I still have a skeleton that I bought from your store that hangs up in my back hallway.
Oh my God, little metal ones? I've never seen it there, yeah.
Yeah, swag.
Yeah, the small town stuff, but, and then I remember seeing you guys at soccer.
Yes, 11 years of soccer. I did bring up a video of you.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, how long ago was this?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that one because there was something that pissed Joe off about it. You can pull it up, but we can talk about it. Turn that off because I don't want to hear myself. But it was a girl who was doing her
Hans Meyer?
Yeah, it was her final report or something at OU, and she did. So you can totally pull that up for a little backstory on
Is it on YouTube?
Yeah. Did you find it?
What would I type in?
No, I mean that right there. That one.
Oh, okay.
You can pull that up because that's totally validly who I was. I mean, but what I'm saying is, the only thing I really remember is Joe was pissed off about something. Maybe that he wasn't.
Demonstration.
But Jesus, look how skinny I was.
Yeah.
Oh my God. but okay, well, here's my journey to, and we've talked about, James and I talked about being careful about not talking too much about exes, but during that time, I very much was, people were complimenting me on like my weight loss and body shape and stuff, and I had a breakdown where I was like, I'm Jane Fonda, I'm bulimic, anorexic. I wasn't, but I mean, my clients are looking at me like look at me. I was like, my clients are looking at me like, I forgot about this, that I'm just reached all these fitness goals, but I literally was like starving to death from stress and anxiety.
Sure.
And woke up one day and went, I am a fraud, and I am training all these women who think that they're going to get to the size I am, and I'm not telling them that literally I'm just a ball of anxiety. So anyway, so yeah, he found that. So if we want to pull that up at some point, we can.
Yeah.
If there's any video out there, I will find it. I will just prepare better next time. Again, we just did the artwork and stuff before we started, but this is number one, right?
Yeah, there's a lot. So before we jump back in, so we're going to do like another 40 minutes. So you're good?
Yeah, ready.
Okay. Well, we're going back on whenever he tells us. I'll finish my.
Oh, we're on. It never stopped.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
All right, you'll just cut that out. So anyway, when I went to Yoga Slackers training, which was as tough as my black belt test, but it was 10 days, right? And pain. And I checked in with myself, and I was like, I looked at my instructors and I said, I'm in so much pain. And they're like, okay, cool. Well, what are you gonna do about it? So I used arnica, pain reliever, just got through. But almost every day I had to stop an activity for hip pain or back pain. So finished our teacher training. We all became certified Yoga Slacker teachers. David and Ryan, who live in Georgia, we kept in contact. So as soon as I got back from Yoga Slacker teacher training, the pain just all over. I was at 36. I think I was 36 then. And I had to stop doing everything. I stopped holding focus mitts for people in boxing because the shoulders were killing me. I would just teach kettlebells. I wouldn't actually touch a kettlebell. I just stopped and I started doing yin. I started doing deep yoga. I was traveling and teaching, and I was going to Cincinnati doing my teacher training. And fast forward to March of the next year, and Ryan in Georgia and his wife invited me down to teach at their place in their community. So I show up, stayed at their house. It was a great reunion to see everybody again, and okay, let's get back on track. And Ryan was like, well, we don't have to do this if your back hurts, Kat. I'm like, my back's fine.
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, he's like, well, if your hip's bothering you, we don't have to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, my hip's good. What are you talking about? And I was like, oh my gosh. The last time he saw me, I was in so much pain. But in these 10 months since I saw him, I stopped all of that destructive fitness BS that I had evolved out of, and just worked on super deep stretches.
Yeah.
And I was almost pain-free. I'm 42. I literally have no back pain.
Yeah.
I have no back pain when I thought my birthright was back pain.
I really thought mine was too.
Mm-hmm.
I had scoliosis on 6'7", but I just assumed that always meant pain. And really the least place I have pain is my low back. I don't have a super strong low back. I can't lift what I used to, but it's balanced. I've done everything in the world to try to, strengthen everything extremely evenly. So but I always notice the second things are imbalanced. If I did too much chest work, which is always my job, pushing down and in on bodies, then often I'll wake up in the morning, especially if I slept on my side and wasn't really, aware of where my top arm was. I like to lay my hand on my hip and just along my body because it doesn't internally rotate your shoulder. If I fall asleep really hard, I tend to round up and everything is, rounded as far forward as possible and curl up, in a fetal position. And then I wake up and I want to stay in that position. So, immediately before I even get out of bed, often like doing, cobra pose or something to bend the other way, immediately, not waiting until I go to bed, make the coffee and all that, before I even get out of the bed. But that's a big part of why I know I don't have low back pain. It only hurts at specific times when the most imbalance is occurring.
Right.
And then you just stretch, rebalance. Another thing that you said that like you quit doing the destructive, fitness. I tell people all the time that it is so rare that I actually work out. People always think that you look like you work out. No, I don't. I don't have big giant arms. I don't have a big chest.
I think it's your
But I
posture.
stretch, right. It's my posture, which is something I've pointed out to a lot of bodybuilders. I've met bodybuilders over the years that like their hands, when you hang your hands down to your side and just, take a deep breath and let them just hang however they go, they should almost be pointing forward. No one really knows that. Like most people's hands point either at their legs or backwards.
Right.
I met a couple bodybuilders, their hands pointed outward. Now, and I don't mean outward like, open outward. I mean completely rounded so far, that their hand had turned that way.
Right.
Which means that their shoulders are about as far, rolled forward as they could get. And then they were like concerned that they couldn't improve their bench weight. Well, you'll never improve your bench weight. There's so much imbalance there, you'll never get past the weakness that you have in your back and your shoulder. So you can have the biggest chest in the world, but you don't have a big chest because you're so rounded forward. So taught them stretching, taught them external rotation of the shoulder, tons of it. I used to point out to people that, if you can bench press 300 pounds, then, if you do like a, laying down, or I can't think of any kind of rowing, if you're rowing, if you can bench press 300 and you can't row 300, there's a huge imbalance there. It's an obvious imbalance. If you can, do a hamstring curl with, 30 pounds and then you do a quad extension with, 600 pounds, I mean, that is an obvious huge imbalance, and it's easy to figure it out, but again, be aware,
Well, it's like, what is the short-term goal? What is the long-term goal, right? And then, do you want a beach body? All right, take your body to a beach. Whatever it is. Like there's nothing wrong with wanting those goals. And I'll tell people, I was CrossFit before CrossFit was cool. Like I was doing kettlebells and before people knew what they were. And so I learned all those lessons super fast, and correcting hand positions and making sure that I wasn't hurting myself and loving what a kettlebell did for my body, right? Yeah. But then also understanding that that culture is not about correction. It's not about making sure that you're in correct alignment and fixing it. So it's just like I just look at them and go, okay, I'm really glad you're using kettlebells. Come to yoga later. I'll try to fix you later. But I literally looked at a potential client 24 hours ago and said, "What's your goal?" He's almost 50. What's your goal? And he's like, and I said, is it to get up and down off the floor with your grandkids?
Yeah.
Because that's your goal.
Right.
Your goal is to not have an inevitable surgery that you're being told you have. But when we can't get past like that fear of, what's going to make us get up in the morning, do a little bit of cardio, do a little stretching. If he's listening right now, I love you. Because all of it comes with so much love, and I'm so willing to offer you the accountability when we can get past your spouse or your partner loves you for who you are, no matter what shape you are. Your family loves you. You don't have to fit some type of like picture ideal to be loved more. When we grow out of that, when we're done hitting all those ideals, what is it you want to do? I want to be able to put up my own Christmas decorations until I'm 99 years old,
Yeah.
or have somebody else do it because they want to do it for me. Not and get up and down off the floor with grandkids and be able to go on adventures with my kids, you know, like that's the ultimate of seeking the balance, right? It's not any other thing of, I want to walk in a room and people be like, oh, look at her body. Oh, but, you know, like, where are we trying to get? And it is overall life happiness, you know, in our family and our relationships, and if we're seeking something in the gym, what are we not getting somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, I think, like, my goal was always, I've loved sports. I've loved sports my whole life. Played just so many different ones and fell in love with a few, you know, and I've continued to play those through my whole adulthood. Basketball, soccer, disc golf mostly. But I don't ever want to stop playing those three sports, ever. Like, as long as I'm breathing, that's what I want to be doing. Not every day or anything like that. Definitely not at a high level. Don't even have to be competitive, but I want to play it, you know, and for many reasons. You know, when I grew up, sports were the hour of the day or the 2 hours of the day that life didn't even exist. You know, like nothing on the outside of that court or that, you know, field or whatever, it didn't even exist. You know, it's just that sport. And, you know, you learn focus through that, and when you don't focus, you learn very quickly that that's real bad because, you know, your skills just go straight out the window. So, you know, with the desire to always want to play, I quickly realized that it is balance that will allow me to play the rest of my life. And again, not at a high level, but when I'm 90, I want to go shoot some hoops. You know, I want to play pig with my grandkids. For me, that's probably part of my legacy. To every kid I've ever encountered, I wanted to show them that, you know, that they can try a sport as well. You know, that you don't have to be the best at it. Like some of the worst players on my team, you know, got the most accolades because they tried way harder knowing they were the worst player. And that was always me. I was never the most talented, but I was always going to be the one that worked the hardest. I'm always going to outrun you. If you'll run 10 laps, I'll run 20, you know. If you'll shoot 100 shots, I'll shoot 500. And because of that, I got better. And I got better than everyone around me. But it was always due to more commitment and trying, you know, that much harder, giving it that much effort, you know. Yeah, I don't know. That was really all I had to say about all that. But yeah, I just think that, you know, like, balance is what is going to get me there, you know, and I realized very quickly that I was horribly imbalanced. One of the easiest things to show me that was my x-ray. I had an x-ray of my spine. It looked like, number one, it looked like my right hip was hanging on a hook, and my left hip, you know, or left hip was just sitting on the ground. I think it was almost 2 inches of elevation in my right hip, which, as you know, you probably know, then your spine does some crazy stuff to try to compensate for that. And at that point, I think I was in like 34, and I had extreme low back pain all the time, constantly. And then when I saw the x-ray, I was like, well, duh, you know, like, that's obvious that that's a problem. So something I've done for myself, and I try to tell people with scoliosis this all the time, you're not just screwed because you have scoliosis. But the most important thing to do is look at your x-ray, right? You can see where those curves are. Talk to your chiropractor about, you know, why would those curves be there. If they don't really explain to you why they're there, then go to a muscle chart. You know, line up your x-ray next to a muscle chart and figure out, okay, well, this is the part of my spine that curves this way. What muscle would pull it back the other way? That's something I've done in my stretching exercises, strengthening. I'm always going to try to, you know, get that spine as straight as possible, and that is muscles that do that. So soft tissue holds your spine where it goes. You know, the spine has no strength. It's just bones, you know, and it's all controlled by soft tissue.
So what was your catalyst to change? Like
The pain.
the
pain.
The pain.
And because the pain was happening more and more and interfering with my games.
So one of my favorite quotes that I use with my friends and clients a lot is about the farmer and the dog. And the neighbor walks by and the farmer's on the front porch and the dog's sitting there just howling. He's like, "What's wrong with your dog?" Farmer says he's sitting on a nail. Says, "Why doesn't he get up?" He's
Yeah.
like, "Must not hurt bad enough."
Right?
So, you know, when we're hearing this and we're saying this and we're talking about it, and you know, Jim included, you know, clients, and you're like, "I hear you.
Yeah.
When are you ready to get off the nail? And what's going to be your catalyst to change? Is it going to be a diagnosis that seems, you know, life-threatening, something that's like all or nothing, you know?"
That's a lot of times for me.
And statistically, I believe that's a lot. That's for a lot of people, is we're not. And so, you know, my feelings, my thoughts and feelings are what I put out to the world, what I put out to clients or potential clients, or why I want somebody to want life coaching or well-being coaching or you know, accountability. Like, when are you ready to say, is it because it's familiar? Is it your comfort zone? You know?
Yeah.
Okay? Is that nail your comfort zone? Step out of your comfort zone. Comfort zones aren't comfortable. They're familiar.
Familiar, right?
Okay? So it's the fear of stepping away of what's familiar. My pain is familiar. When I walk into a room and somebody says, "How are you feeling?" You already know the script.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
You walk in like, "Yeah, there's that back's hurting again." I walked into my friend's house in Georgia, and they were ready for that script. They were ready for the, okay, here we are with Kat's back pain, you know, and
Yeah.
then there's something more back pain, you know. So, you know, Jim might be like, "Oh, you're going to put me out of business. I need people with back pain."
Please do.
You know?
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Please put me out of
Yeah,
business.
yeah,
Like, I hope that when I teach people,
Yeah.
like, everyone just does it, and then I won't have to, you
Tell
know.
people every day, I hope you don't have to see me.
Yeah, and so then, and the journey of the, you know, why Olympic athletes need coaches. Olympic athletes have coaches.
Yeah.
So we are in a time where I feel like the word life coach, or like as you were talking about, you know, you coaching sports and stuff, is like, we have an awareness of like, of when your kid plays high school baseball, they're going to have a coach, you know, that. So when you're in life and you're literally running your whole world,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you want somebody, a coach? You might have a great friend, but that great friend, and I think you spoke about this in the beginning, was like, when we talk to each other, and the advice that you give to me, a coach is going to be more likely to say to you what's in the best interest for you. Right?
Yeah.
Or a friend, or a spouse, or a parent, you know, they have a vested interest. They're just like, "Dude, get your stuff together, because I'm not giving you another $20, you know?"
Right. No.
You know,
Or I'm not going to give you an hour of my time to sit and listen to you cry. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I think those are.
and what do we need to hear? What do we need to hear of, like, well, you know, what are you willing to change? Are you so familiar with the pain and the story that you don't want to change? Then this is not where we should be, you know, and I'll spend time, you know. So is that like, are we getting, what are we getting from this conversation? And are you leaving here with hope, with an action plan, or with a, you know, like when I start a workshop about meditation, because people say, "Oh, the struggle of meditation. I could never meditate. Oh, I meditate when I sleep," you know, whatever, all the comments I've heard over the years. And I'll ask everybody, okay, who in this room thinks they're good at worrying?
Yeah.
And it does not matter when I was teaching at Marshall University, when I taught in senior centers, it doesn't matter the age.
Yeah.
Get the hands to come up.
Yeah.
I teach 7th and 8th graders right now at a local high school. The hands come up. They're so good because it's a badge of honor that they worry so much.
Yeah.
And I was like, then you are good at meditating,
Yeah.
because you are taking one thought, you you are focusing on it intensely
So true.
for an extended period of time. Good job. Pat yourself on the back. You are a master meditator.
Just not a healthy one.
Except that. Except that your body doesn't know what year it is. You stimulate the vagus nerve. You now are having a panic attack. Your body thinks that looking down at that text, you're being now chased by a bear,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So because you're worried about whatever that external thing is. And so to know, like, to say how simple, like, I actually already can do that. But now when I do that, how do I take that thought, put it in context, reframe it? Who's my trusted friend, coach? I mean, thank God, goddess of the universe, I have such a beautiful tribe around me that I don't think I wear anybody out.
Yeah.
So, at any hour of the day, if it's a text or a phone call of like, okay, I'm panicking about this, or this is what's, my heart rate's going up, like this is what's happening. So then it's like, okay, we'll bring it back. Like, focus on the I ams. What is true, what you want it to be true, and that I'm not being chased by a bear.
Yeah.
Everything is figure-outable.
Yeah.
And if I just slow my breath down, my mind will clear and my body will go back to a state of being able to, because if not, then we eventually need chiropractic and massage, right? Because then we're holding all of that in our bodies, and it's not a learned skill. That's why that's why it's a yoga practice, it's a meditation practice, it's something you need a coach for, you need a massage therapist. We don't learn this stuff in life.
No.
And
Well, it's not, I don't feel like it's possible to learn it through the lives that we live. Nothing in this world is teaching us to be balanced, or, how to be balanced, or how to meditate properly.
Can you get that through a drive-through?
Right. Exactly.
drive-through mindfulness coming right up.
I know. That might be the next billion-dollar industry right there. That's too funny, because, that might actually work, Jim. That's actually funny. Yeah, I can see that working really well, actually. But I don't think, I think it's just, I don't know, I put a post on my Facebook recently, something about advice. You don't, like, you will be miserable in life if you don't listen to the good advice, and you'll be miserable longer because of, like, if you don't know how to listen to good advice, like, how do you ever get better? I don't know that you ever can improve, because you're just telling yourself stuff at that point.
When I was about 24, 23, I had a big decision to make in life, and I was like, oh, I just want my mom to tell me what to do so I can rebel.
Yeah.
That was my want for advice. I just want my mom to tell me what to do so I can do the opposite.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way I know how to make decisions at this point in my life.
That sounds like my daughter. I hope she's not listening.
But it's the advice, right? It was like I was willing and ready to receive advice. I really was.
Yeah.
But I was also at that point of evolution. Emotional intelligence was low, right? I was still young. And figuring out how, up until that point, did I make decisions in life? Right? I just followed the squirrel, followed the butterfly in the field. Whoa, this looks like fun. And then did the opposite of what my mom said. Hi, Mom.
Yeah. Sounds a lot like my young life.
Yeah. So if we are seeking, right? If somebody is seeking advice or seeking balance or wanting, you're going to quickly. As providers, we quickly realize: are they ready to receive it? Are they actually ready to receive it? Or are we going back to our conditioned behaviors that it feels good to complain?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it easier just to go, okay?
Well, speaking of complaining, that's something that, like, I can't tell you how many people come into my practice in a place where you're supposed to describe to me your pain, and they look at it like complaining. And, like, when I express how I feel in a moment, I never feel like that's complaining. And I've been told it was, but I've never felt like they were right, you know, like, because that person generally is the type that feels that pain and then just blocks it off. That doesn't work, you know what I mean? That is what creates those blocks in your energy, the tension in your neck and your low back and your, all these things. And I actually have a patient right now that I'm doing energy work, mostly Reiki and craniosacral. And so, like, when she first came in, she really was having, like, struggling pooping. Like, because of, like, just blocking everything off and pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down. It literally constipated her. And that really happens.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people, like, you know, a lot of times when you're feeling that internal stuff, it's from the external coming in and you just pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down. You got to get it out, and talking about it is the best way to get it out. Now, this is something else I see. This happened a lot in my life for some reason, but the stranger who sees that, oh, you're a practitioner. Now, you're not my patient or anything, but you're a practitioner. I see it on your sign, and then feels like they need to spill their entire stuff to you. That's not the right person to talk to. You know, a trusted friend, a trusted practitioner, but not just some stranger. That's the worst person to spill it to, you know? But I definitely think that, you know, having those trusted people in your life, it's the number one, like, for me, it was the number one goal to loving myself. Because for me, I think in the beginning, some of the friendships I had were so toxic. I mean, just disgustingly toxic. Just taking full, I was willing to allow people to take full advantage of me. I used to hang out with my older brothers that completely tortured me. You know, well, they taught me how to fight, but never in a good way. But I still wanted to hang out with them. You know, they threw rocks at me. They did all these things that were just, you know, bully tactics. But they also, in the back of their mind, knew they were making me tougher. And when I first met them, when I was adopted, I was 9. You know, I had gone through like 15 families at that point. And I was just beaten down. You know, I was completely weak, had no confidence or any of those things, always just told I was nothing, told I was this, told I was that. And when I met my brothers, like, they recognized it very quickly that, oh, he'll just put up with anything. And as kids do, if you'll put up with it, they'll keep doing it. You know, and then eventually I just got sick of, like, do I really, you know, like, should I be putting up with this just to hang out with them? And then at that point I was starting to get bigger, you know, 14, 15 years old. I ended up bigger than all my brothers, well, taller than all my brothers. So, you know, what they had taught me kind of, you know, came back, well, I don't know how to explain that. Like, what I went through with them taught me how to be stronger, how to deal with those people that are bullies or, you know, trying to push you around, trying to get as much out of you as they can without giving anything back. And that's just toxicity. So I stay far, you know, those brother and, you know, relationships, sisters and stuff like that growing up, it just taught me so much about relationships altogether.
Here's the way that I parent. You know, in martial arts, they say you can die 1,000 times on the mat to survive once on the street.
Yeah.
So when it comes to in the house, when they start little verbal stuff, a little picking on each other or whatever, and it can, I mean, it's everything. We talk about politics, religion, differences in the way that we cook and clean and everything. Who mows this way, who mows that way, and I'll let it go for a little bit. And then I'll, you know, like, now you know how to debate with somebody. Did you get angry and start to cry and leave the room? Okay, well, go fact check and come back, you know? But die 1,000 times in this kitchen in that verbal fight. So one time on the street, one time as an adult, you know exactly when you want to speak your mind and you speak clearly and you survive that specific verbal attack. So that idea that, like, is it awful that you had to go through those things and we're just like, oh my gosh.
No.
But, right,
It
but
was then,
that's
at the
you.
moment.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, but then it's like that, wrapping it around and saying, then wouldn't you have rather that happened within some type of safety of a home, right? And then opposed to dumping out into the world and then, having that happen. But to speak on like having somebody to talk to, I think that if somebody's listening to this and they're just like, well, I don't feel connected to my genetic family, I don't have those deep relationships, I'm working from home for the last year and I've lost all connection with my work family, I don't have that. And so that is be the light you wish to see in the world. And I think to those people, it is right now, look up holding space. Google holding space. What is it to hold space? Learn it, become it, teach it, and you'll attract it. Because if you need someone to hold space, you have to learn how to do it. And if that is what, people walking up to you telling you, stuff, and you're like, I don't need to know your ailments, I'm not your provider.
Right.
They're hungry for it and they need to learn it as well. And for me, the first time somebody sent me an article about holding space and I read it, it was life-changing. It was life-changing can you sit and hear with non-judgment and hold that time and space for somebody, allow them to speak and process as they need to.
Yeah.
And then let them have their silence or let them have their moment,
Yeah.
And then if they really want feedback, you'll know. But for the most part, it's an epidemic of people talking over people, of not hearing, not caring. Like after we talk, I spend the next 3 hours to 3 days still responding to you in my mind.
Yeah. I usually do too.
And I'll be like, I'll send you a random text and be just like, I did that yesterday. I'm like, oh, isn't that interesting? It ties into that thing we were talking about.
Yeah.
So for me, that learning that skill of saying we can say what we need. I think it was 2 years ago on Christmas Eve. I'm sitting in St. Mary's Catholic Church with my parents, and I kind of like half look through the crowd and, backing around, and I was just like, can we all be peer support? Can we all hold space? Why don't we just all know how to do it? Why do we have to wait for if we have insurance or not? Did we find the right counselor for us? There's not enough counselors in this country for the people who need them at this point, right? So it's like every article you can share, every meme you can share, every quote you can share, it's like find your tribe. Or the women's one is like, if you're talked about when you leave the table, don't sit at that table with those women, or that kind of stuff. And it's like, that's all well and fine, but that's just triggering, and it doesn't give me an idea of what I'm supposed to do next.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, what if the seeking balance? What we say, I really need someone to hear me. How do I become a better listener? Right?
Yeah.
All that I need today is clarity. How can I give somebody else a clear vision of what they need? And it might be you're also working full time and raising 5 kids and whatever. But there is still 5 minutes in each day to try to say, like, how can I be what I need? And because when you start to work towards being that person, you'll attract that person somehow, in a friendship, in somebody you meet at church, in a relationship, in the soccer mom that you haven't talked to before, whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, to add to that, I would say that, if you are dating, and something I've noticed over my lifetime is that, for the most part anyway, it seems that each next person I date is a more responsible relationship, where I actually take care of my stuff, pay attention to what I need in that relationship, whereas all the past ones, or a lot of the past ones, begin with me just pouring it on, and I'm not really one to stop pouring it on, until they show me that they're sick of me pouring it on. And then I realized that, like, I've been pouring this on way too heavy. But I think with each relationship, I realize that, okay, you know, I'm not going to start with the pouring on, you know, and just start with just be open to what the possibilities are.
Maybe just hold space.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm doing,
Yeah.
I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
But not so much when I was younger.
well, of course not. I mean, who knew what that concept even was?
Not me.
Who knew? I mean, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, you know, and it was, you know, a random article with an enlightened yogi that shared it or sent it or something, and I'm reading it going, this is everything I've ever needed. I'm like probably the oldest soul that dropped in the mid-Ohio Valley on a dairy farm, okay? Like, this has been a rough entry. Like, so when I started to find that awakening and that magic and that clarity and that, you know, how do I honor this life, my first 18 years, and then, you know, what is my mission? What is my soul mission? What is my job here? What am I supposed to be doing and sharing and creating? And then, like, oh, you know, people just want to be heard. I mean, I had a moment of, like, just really realizing that I just needed a soft place to fall, you know, with it, and there was nobody there to catch me, right? And so when you kind of use that terminology that people are used to, that I needed that. And then instead of wallowing in it, I took to task and went, who's already here around me? Who's my friends and my family that are already here around me, trying to hold me up, but I'm not allowing it.
Right.
And I'm always, I got this, I got this, I got this. I don't need anybody, I got this.
Yeah.
You know? And so I started to kind of test the waters of, like, what if I accept their help? What if I let them, you know, what if I call and talk for 45 minutes straight and just jump it all on them? And then I was like, oh my gosh, somebody can hold that space for me. And then in turn, you know, it made me a much better listener, provider, parent. Like, okay, I'm just going to hear you. And as soon as I hear that voice in my head add a judgment to it or something, nope, not going to say it. Just going to let it pass. And that's a really, I wish that for everyone. I wish that for everyone, whether it's, you know, needing it in major life trauma, or just, I don't know if I should take this new job or stay where I'm at for safety. You know?
Yeah.
We need those sounding boards.
I agree. Yeah, I know for me that's been a huge part of recovery, you know, from toxic stuff. Was just being able to talk to somebody. I know when I was younger, I was definitely one of those that would spill it on anybody. I had so much to get out that anybody that was willing to listen got to hear it. And then you realize that, like, some of those people are going to use that information against you. And you got to be aware of, you know, that too. But it doesn't mean you don't put yourself out there, because if I'd have never put myself out there, none of those things would have ever gotten out of my chest. And that would have been devastating. Probably life-ending. And so, yeah, I think, you know, that's a great first step, you know, finding that person that you can trust, you know. I still tell people that loving yourself first is a good, even better start. If you love yourself, it's so much easier to love everyone else. And I think a lot of times, well, for me, like, I thought I loved a lot of different people in my life. And, you know, it seems like as you meet the next person who is more meant for you, or you relate to more, you realize that, no, maybe I wasn't really, you know. I don't know, it seems like with each relationship for me, and I'm sure there's at least one ex out there of mine that's listening, that, you know, I don't know, I guess I just don't, I didn't used to listen to it very well, you know, and, like, I don't know, like the intuition, I didn't listen to any of that, you know, and when that, infatuation hits, the chemicals are flying, it was easy to let that get out of control. Because it feels great. There's chemicals that are making your body heal and be numb and all these things that feels good, but what I've learned over life is that connection means less and less. That infatuation connection means less and less, and without the deeper connection, for me, sex isn't even fun. I'm realizing very, much so in my life that without that love connection and that super intimate connection, that I don't really even want to have sex. I think in my lifetime there's been enough casual sex that it's just not fun anymore. It's just sex, and that, I think over time, because I'm someone who pays attention to every experience in my body, it just is, it's not even acceptable anymore, just casual.
So if you could say that to yourself, your former self, do you think it would do any good?
No.
Okay, I don't think so either.
No, because my former self allowed hormones to control me.
Yeah.
And which is easy to do, I think, for anybody, especially depending on male, female, age, all that stuff. But no, I've never, paid attention to any of that, and I never wanted to change it. I do remember getting into my mid-30s, and I remember my pastor said something about be careful what you ask for. When praying, be careful what you ask for. And I was just kind of well, that almost sounds like, if you pray for something that maybe you don't think you should have, you should get or whatever, then maybe you'll get it and you'll be sorry, So, right after that preaching he did, I went home and sat down and prayed, take my sex drive away. I don't like it. It gets me in trouble. I make the dumbest choices. I fall in love with just instant, but not love, right. Infatuation, instantly. And so take that away. And he did, or it did, or whatever did. But it went away for a while, and it was the most eye-opening experience of my life. And that you can touch someone with just love, not sex. You can allow someone to touch you with just love and not sex. That was extremely life-changing. And I think it makes me a better massage therapist because of it. I think for me, touch isn't sex. Not even a little bit. I actually enjoy touch more than I do sex. I know in this world we're always taught sex is the best feeling in the world. If that is if that's your real truth, then you have not done enough. You've not experienced enough things in life to think that sex is the number one awesome feeling in the world. And I'm going to get bashed for saying that, I'm sure. I'll probably get called gay, all that stuff, but I'm absolutely positive I'm not. So, but yeah, I think that the feeling that sex is the most awesome feeling in the world has done nothing but driven me to do some of the stupidest things in my life.
Right, but could you say that to your past self, and would it do any good?
No, that's what I'm saying about loud now.
I know, I hear you.
And some people will hear it, and for me, hearing it in my past, if I had heard it, I possibly could have worked towards it. You know what I mean? But I've never heard that. I never heard hardly any of that stuff. I did hear that well, you just fall head over heels, don't you? All my friends just man, you just fall deep in love,
Yeah.
And but no advice on how not to, or pay attention to what you're doing, or anything like that. It was always after the fact. I've already fallen deep in love, and then they come back with, well, boy, you just do it all the time. It's well, that's not helpful. I don't know why I do it. I don't want to do it. So yeah, I think that.
Well, I think that's a much deeper conversation that definitely comes from childhood trauma, rejection.
Yeah.
What
absolutely.
Knowing your journey up until the age of 9 and things like that. I mean, that's especially me. I mean, I came from a committed family with siblings and loving parents. I don't have those. I don't know. I mean, I'm holding space for you, and I don't really know what that feels like. And so I go, like, to me, the only answer to that deeper conversation is that it is childhood trauma, and you're very normal. I feel like your story is way more normal, because we are. I mean, it was like recently, like 80% of songs have the word love and sex in them or something. You know, like we're just inundated with it, and so when we go, like, what we've already been, like, pre-programmed, or what is love, what is acceptance, what is it, intimacy, is it touch, am I being rejected if they don't love me too, you know, all those things. Or if you were anybody, you know, any childhood trauma of feeling rejected or not loved or not touched, you know, and so then it's just something that you crave and hunger and seek 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 all the time. And that's a story that I feel like, you know, can be told 1,000,000 times over. And so that's where, who can hear your message, and will it get to them, and are they, you know, a 25-year-old, 35-year-old, you know, male that's like, okay, this is the picture I want, and I'm not going to be able to get there with the behaviors that I have, you know?
Yeah.
You know, because if you're looking at, you know, I'm being sold, everybody's posting, you know, engagement pictures and commitment and what I'm supposed to do with life, and then but then what I'm doing is not actually ever going to get me there. And that might not have been you, but I feel that in some of, okay. Okay.
It very much was.
Yeah, so,
well, for me, when I was younger, taking advice was like someone telling me what to do. So I never took advice, ever. And that was that statement I put on my Facebook was just that, God, I wish I could go back to a younger day and just start taking advice, you know? So, yeah, I couldn't have told my younger self that, but looking back, I wish I had. And for me, I think, like, I did listen to a lot of my mentors, you know, a lot of the people that I thought I could trust and I respected and I looked up to. And they often did give me advice. I think I looked up to the people who gave me the advice in the most gentle way.
Right.
If you tell me, like, you need to do this, guaranteed not doing it.
No.
So for me, it was that I had to be true to myself, number one, and part of being true to myself was not doing what someone else told me. I question everything. I'm supposed to question everything. I know in my soul that I'm supposed to question everything. You know?
In divine right timing, you're exactly who you're supposed to be with the lessons you were supposed to learn. You know, and I made this post Father's Day a couple years ago, and every year I copy and paste it. My father did an injustice to all men of the world. I had no idea that a man could be too hot or too cold. I never knew that a man could be hungry or tired. I never understood that. When I was a teenager standing in, you know, outside a parking lot, and these guys were complaining they were cold or shivering or something, I was like, what is happening? Oh my God, who are these aliens? And
that's funny.
I don't remember him ever telling me no. I don't remember, he never told me no. I don't remember ever telling him no. I remember climbing a tree and saying, I need help getting down. And he said, well, the same way you got up. And he'd walk away. You know, and you know, we'd be at the barn. I grew up on a dairy farm. You know, it was like, my brother was quite a bit older, so it was just me and 4 girls. And I never understood waiting for a man to do something. Never. Why would I wait for him? He's busy. He's milking the cows. Why would I ever wait for a man to do it? You know, he's like, you know where the hammer is. You know, like there was never, or if it was, you know, okay, I got my chores done. Okay, go get your studies done. Go get your homework done. You know, and so I had this huge realization of like what completely different. You know, I always had a lap to sit on until I was too big. You know, I wondered, like, when did I stop kissing him goodnight before I went to bed? You know, all of those things, and then go like, there's no living up to that. There's no completely completely opposite experiences, of childhood, of then coming up and saying, what? Like, I never for 1 second questioned that he couldn't do anything and everything, and that I never like waited for him to do it either. It was such I think it's such a unique experience, but such a strange realization to then share with people and say, I truly believed when I set out to do the things that I've done, which I'm definitely the black sheep, and I have done a lot of, my career is out there and crazy. I've never for 1 second thought I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm stuck in a tree. How do I get down? Same way you get up.
Yeah.
All right, Dad, see you later.
Just tell your dad that that's not the truth.
Well, I always found my way down, but you know what I mean. It wasn't a rescuing.
Yeah.
It was
I was never a rescuing dad either.
Yeah, but it was definitely an awareness of that, of like when I had that awareness of also like what type of parent I want to be. But and I mean, my mom was amazing too, but I mean, it was just like of course when you think about the opposite gender of like my relationship with my dad, I was like, I never waited for a man to do anything. I couldn't wait for him. He only had us.
Yeah.
It was just us girls. So like stepping out into the world and going like, and like having to learn social cues because I didn't know them. So, so I think that each time we have this conversation, we need to have a little closure.
Yeah.
Because I think we're going on 2 hours.
I think we are.
140.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
40 minutes.
Well, there's a lot, as far as like what we want to put out to the world, and I think that seeing perspective of like how we can affect the world and how we can positively affect change, because if we didn't think that what the work we were doing is important, this wouldn't have manifested, right? So I think that is a Gandhi quote. I'm going to have to do my homework, but be the light you want to see in the world. And so I think recognizing that you come at the world with a softness in your masculinity that makes you very easy to approach, and for people to want to tell you things that you don't necessarily want to hear.
I agree.
And you're like, I'll hear it, but come get a massage too. Like, let me help you with it. And so the helpers of the world and the healers of the world and the shifting energies of what I think that this podcast can turn into, of what aha moments we have, what that's really something we need to speak on more. And I think the flow of truly it's the inside job, the physical balance of the inside of our body. How are we balanced? How do we get more balanced? When we're off balance, who do we need to help us get back on track? Because after that, our spiritual and mental beings will fall in place.
Yeah, I would add to that to our listeners, a lot of this is going to come flying at you at 100 miles an hour. And it's going to be hard to pick up all of it, take all of it, into yourself and see what you need from it and what you don't. But an open mind is critical to healing, always. So go into it with an open mind. I think that's super important. So, I think we're done.
Seek a balance with Kat and James. I think you all did well.
Super fun. Thank you.
Say a 1 and a 2. Thanks everybody for listening. Shout outs. Anybody want to say hi to anybody?
Well, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head.
Alright, we'll call it a night.
Alright.
Seek a balance with Kat and James. Guys, have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks for helping.
Whew.